You know the history about this, but Axel,
Yeah.
some of you
Go ahead
do.
and tell us.
Shame.
Axel built the first 3 prototypes, and he had working models, which this pretty much cleaned up a little bit, but I followed everything Axel did. There was no reason to change anything. The signal path is exactly the same, and it's identical to Adrian's as far as function, all the signal path and things like that. Nothing left out, nothing supposedly changed and improved.
Yeah.
The only improvements, like I got a good pot for the volume pot, really good pot, but it's really the same, hasn't been changed. I've got a good engineer that helped me figure out the original ones, which, not to take anything away from Axel, but as a kind of a hobby type project, everything was packed in there
Yeah.
and quite messy. And it still looks messy, but it's really way clean compared to what
How
it
long
used to
does
be.
it take to put everything
I actually,
together?
I have to modify the Variax. I've got to modify the RMC in here. Actually, everything has to either be modified or built. I've got a couple of circuit boards. Like here's a circuit board. There's one here that holds the 3 trimmer pots. There's a circuit board on the volume pot. Here's a circuit board. And then there's another one that we have on for the voltage regulator that's outside the guitar. And there's probably close to 40 hours with my fabrication because I have to actually make the tone pot. Axel somehow figured out a way to get a Tokus brand pot. He modified it so that the detent is on all the way up. When you go full clockwise, there's a little detent, and that puts the Sustainiac in harmonic mode.
Right.
And then he put a push-pull on it. So I've got parts from Tokus, and I've got a push-pull from an Alpha pot. And I had to make the frame and everything, and I had to make the shaft. There's a lot of hours just in that, but there's somewhere, and I've just been too busy to really figure out exactly, but we got probably about 35 hours with everything, whether it's the mods done outside the guitar and the wiring of the guitar. My portion is about 35 hours, somewhere in that area. And they give me a guitar, the hardware's on, the trem is on, the battery box is in there, and that's it. It's painted, and I installed piezos, the pickups. This here is basically to make the change of the piezos easy. When Axel built the first ones, he went through and it snaked through, and if one went down,
Yeah,
it was a
it didn't
project.
work.
It was
Okay.
it was an all-day project for the uninitiated to do that.
Okay.
If he goes and buys a piezo, it would take him a full day if he was any good. Now they come up through here, and he can just unsolder that, pull it through there. It still takes a little bit of a knack, but it's been simplified quite a bit.
Yeah.
It took me a while, and it was really a simple solution, but it took me a while to figure out how to do that because I didn't want to run them all the way through.
Yeah, sure.
This way, now a guy doesn't have to disturb anything, he doesn't have to pull anything out. Technician can just merely desolder, pull it through, run another one up and solder it.
Yeah.
So that I think was really a great improvement to this because they do go down. Piezos do go down.
Yeah. So
And Adrian, he's gone through some. And his tech, on his lime gold guitar, we repainted it, and I had them route this out, and when I reassembled it, this here is on his lime gold guitar, which his guitar tech was very appreciative for.
just pull the wire out.
He just
re-solder
thought it
it.
was a great idea. So
really-
probably the other 2 guitars are going to be eventually brought up to date.
And when you have to change the spring,
Um,
does the piezo
You can get it.
fail more often than the spring?
well,
Probably.
supposedly they've got the spring problem solved, and it's tempering they've got that down now. But occasionally, I don't know if have you had a spring break?
No, not me. It's just that it's not related to spring breaks. It was just seeing that part in front of it was
When they
setting
do
them up should be.
when they do break though, they generally tend to go to the forward portion of the guitar,
Oh.
and usually it's not a problem. But occasionally, from what Terry tells me, they'll put a bulge in some guitars because it's not real thick up front there.
Yeah.
That they'll actually break so violently.
Yeah, you should.
But
Or you can slide it.
you can actually, you can do that.
Okay.
You can actually do that.
Yeah.
I've got the stop on. You put the stop, and it allows
Okay,
the
you
trim,
can-
and you can take it out.
Yeah.
It's not, other than the fact that it's kind of hard to get your fingers in there, but it goes in there
You can-
easily.
Yeah, you do not have to desolder
No.
anything.
No, you don't have to. If for some reason you need a little more room to work, which I don't have any problem, you can loosen the two screws and
Mhm.
kind of tip that up. But there's no problem.
So how much circuitry is there for the sustain jack? Is it all in the pickup itself, or have you got some boards in the back?
There's a board underneath here. It's about this long. In fact, it comes all the way over here to the end. It's about an inch, I'd say an inch and an eighth wide, about that long. It's underneath there. And I actually, to make everything fit, there's capacitors on the other side of the Variax board. I basically have to unsolder them and tip them sideways.
Right.
I put new capacitors in there, but we tip them sideways because it needs the clearance. I've got one here that the jack, in the beginning, I found that some of them would clear the capacitor, and we're only talking a 1/16 of an inch difference on the location. What I do now is I just tip the capacitor right from the get-go, and I don't mess around with it. So there's a capacitor tipped under here, and there's one over here to clear the sustainer.
Do you do any collaboration with Line 6 as far as getting the board in, or do you just buy the parts and it's all?
No, they set me up, and they're happy to do it because they feel the Variax is such a great system. They wanted to see it in a high-end guitar, so they're actually they're actually happy about it. And I guess Adrian had something to do with that.
Yeah, I used Line 6 for a while.
Yeah, he evidently keeps in touch with them, and I guess they figured why not. So
Something like put the Variax goods in rack format.
Yeah.
Just happen to see that.
there are guitars out there. I guess guys make guitars
Yeah.
with everything but the guts, and you go buy a Variax, strip it out, and put it in. Supposedly, they are going to be coming up with a little bit of an upscale model. They have something in the works.
It's
So
a really nice clean job.
What would
Really
be good for you would be a
impressive.
downscale version of that.
yeah, well,
Circuit board.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's
I really
amazing.
appreciate it. It took a lot to get all this to fit in there.
Yeah,
We went back and forth, and we scrapped a few guitars to get the routing correct.
yeah.
But everything just fits right in there. I mean, it just fits.